Hello and welcome to Dojo Live this Thursday, April 18th, 2024. My name is Kim Lantis and it's my pleasure to be hosting today. Joining me are David Chesler, President of Provision Partners, as well as Fabiana Mora, who is the Travel Tech Subject Matter Expert, SVP, SME of Travel and Hospitality of Ancora. Good to see you again, David. And of course, thank you for joining us today, Fabi.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure because I'm super excited. What are we doing today? We're kicking off our second series collaboration with you, David, and Provision Partners. This go around, it's the Hospitality Advantage, Real Stories of AI in Action. It's a follow-up to our previous series, which was Do More in 24, How to Take the Next Step with AI. Of course, folks, if you didn't get the chance to catch the previous series, don't worry. It's available to you at our website, dojo.live, of course, and yeah, do check it out. But if you don't mind, you two, I would like to take just 1 minute to do the audience a favor to recap the spirit of the previous series to lay out the groundwork for today. All right, perfect. So the purpose of that Do More in 24 series was really to help organizations proactively prepare for AI planning and deployment. On that first session, or rather the second after the kickoff, we did have Provision Sally Kelly and Ancora's Sandra Vasquez share about design-led thinking and how that's a proven method for avoiding this great term, AI washing, and of course for establishing an AI infrastructure that's going to be effective, scalable, well-managed. We then got to speak with Martin Chevalier, who is the CEO of Inspire, and he shared his experience and techniques that he utilizes for delivering tangible business value. Of course, fostering organizational trust, both internally and with others outside of the organization, creating that buy-in, setting long-term vision, and all kinds of things. And we wrapped it up with how to future-proof, right? Via testing and iteration. That was with the principal machine learning engineer, Jorge Hernandez, also at Ancora. And we finally talked and touched on the benefits of utilizing third-party expertise and consultation, right? For speed and scalability. So again, go ahead and check that out. But on this series, what are our goals? Ready? Drum roll with me, guys. Can you do that? Perfect. That's the best I can do too, David. We're going to introduce a variety of companies, right, in the travel and hospitality industry who have, as we say, embraced the use of AI technologies in their internal operations and also in the products and services that they offer. And we're doing this as a way to encourage viewers to do likewise and, of course, better position themselves and to overcome maybe this common sense of fear that's commonly associated with such implementation. We also want to just further understand how AI is being used, right? That it's not this one-size-fits-all solution on how it's being strategically applied to solve very specific problems, and of course, how it's happening right now. We're going to present some of those best practices, ones that you'd like to emulate, and of course, maybe practices you'd like to avoid. And as always, we're here to inspire you with key trends and developments that can shape the future of travel and hospitality. So, whew,
wow,
we did
I'm
it.
exhausted. That was one amazing sessions we had.
I need some water. Perfect. But with that, David, the past series, our audience did get to know you rather well. But for any first timers that might be here, can you please provide a quick overview of who you are, your experience, and your expertise in the industry?
Yes, it would be a pleasure. I've been in the hospitality industry for about 30 plus years. Started on working with property side and moved into technology and similar. Through the years, worked with founders and large entities creating entrepreneurial fever within these companies. And from that, launched new businesses, helped companies grow, scale, and to the point that working with founders was quite exciting. We do it on the private equity side, we do it on the asset owner side, media, PR, consulting. So as a firm, like a law firm, we've come together to focus on outcomes, not just how do we get hours, right? And in doing that, we like working with partners like Fabi and Encora and yourself, Kim, because it's not just our expertise we bring to the table. It's helping companies identify what their needs are and bringing the right resources at the right time to address their needs. And sometimes that's technology, sometimes that's business and marketing, and we need to understand. So getting in and going through the discovery phases, understanding design-led thinking, where you can empathize with the customers and ideate, working through both the operation and the engagement, so that you're aligning the operation and the commercial side with what the technology and the business needs. And that's much more important, we believe, even in the short iterations of development, that you need to sprint into this new digital transformation. And that's why partners like Encora and Fabi, who I've known for a number of years and truly respect and enjoy, that's where this collaboration really comes together.
Perfect. Thank you. And, you know, Fabi, it is your turn. Lay out for us your experience, your expertise, and of course, maybe what sparked your interest in this very interesting intersection of travel, hospitality, and AI tech.
Thank you, Kim. And who am I kidding? Let me add my glasses here too, especially because if we're going to talk about how long I've been around doing this, it's quite frankly 20 years. And I purposely sometimes slash out the last 4 because I was, you know, off on the logistics side a little bit. But traveling hospitality, it's about 16 years in total. Started off originally at Hotels.com, which later was bought by Expedia, right? So when we talk about the things that I'm really passionate about, it's truly people and culture and technology as a perfect marriage, right? So when I go back to the very beginning of my career and participating in this new effort of how do we position hotels, say your mom and pop type hotels in the map for everybody else to be able to know that they are obviously a beautiful opportunity for their next travel, right? So Hotels.com did that quite well. But when we think about the systems that go into the way of orchestrating this in the e-commerce environment, I think Expedia was a true game changer, right? So you fast forward and you look at my trajectory and a lot of the different companies that I participated in. I think I've always kind of gone in with a mentality of we are a industry of people, therefore service is a big deal. But how do we utilize technology in order to present things in a more efficient kind of way? So, you know, that's where my passion relies. So it's, as we know today, solutions engineering, right? So my true focus is always the real life scenarios and how do we make those better with technology.
Thank you. You know, I can only imagine all that has changed in your 20 years. David's, I think, 20 plus years. And, you know, it seems that the two of you are extremely comfortable and embracing everything that's happening, particularly with the technology side. But from what I can gather, and probably from maybe what you have seen and heard, there might still be some common fears or hesitations that companies are facing when it comes to considering AI implementation. So I'm curious if that is what you also sense, and if so, how might they overcome some of these apprehensions and, as we've said, embrace technologies, specifically AI technologies, effectively?
Well, I think there's a lot more information now. The I guess buzz started with the generative AI, where all of a sudden, you know, AI was creating these scripts, these long diatribes, and rewriting materials and creating content out of thin air, if you will, really through server farms. But the idea was that, you know, this was new and different, and how close are we to the sentient beings from Terminator, right? And it's nothing like that. And literally, we tried to go back early days and explain what AI was about, and that it is a technology, just like, you know, any other technology you might deploy. Ruby on Rails or similar, you're going to understand what do you need to use this technology for, and in using it, what does it actually deliver to me or my end customer? So figuring out what the end customer is or who that customer is and what they need became a real important starting point, where early days, it was really a request from the C-suite of please deploy AI. I'm being asked by the board, our investors, is it a chat bot? Deploy a chat bot. And there was this rush. And the issue is, people have been using machine learning and predictive AI and some other parts of AI for years, since the 50s, really. Fuzzy logic, robotics, machine learning, all of this is part of that AI wheel. And I think back to the point, we as business operators need to understand what we need to deliver to our customer. And from then, we need to call on each of our responsible and accountable parties to tell us, how do we achieve that? The how is the part that I think we're getting to right now, that's starting to include more AI investment and strategy, or here in Texas, strategery, right? So that's where we're kind of focused, is how do you think through this deployment? Security was a real big draw in the early days, and we created a role specifically within the IT organization focused on security, because PCI and all of that became a repeatable and renewable process every year, not just a sprint. That's what we understand AI to be. It's how do we deploy AI in our environment, I'll use a consulting term, our ecosystem, and make it work effectively for either the end user customer or the end user colleague. And that's where we're really trying to understand, how do we use the technology, internal facing, external facing, and where does it cross in all these areas? And that's where experts like Encora and Fabi's team and others are really working with it. And that's what we're encouraging, is not to be scared, but to embrace it and learn more, understand. And that's why we've embraced these events with you.
Yeah. And I think even just to hear you reiterate how long the technology's actually been around, even that lowers the fear level. It makes me think of, like, it's kind of always been there, but just because now it's more in the forefront, it can feel a little scarier. Like, I don't know, the discovery of microbes, right? Like, ooh. But they've always been there. We're all still alive. But how can we do this? Let's develop penicillin, right? So I think it's kind of fun. Fabi, what's your take? What have you seen?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think in reality, AI is already being utilized in many forms, but it's really opaque to the end customer, right? And I think the idea is that it kind of remains being the same for right now, because we are, and I really loved a quote that I read from Bernadette, and she's the director of innovation at Alaska Airlines, where she broke it down to an actual phase. So the way that she proposed it is that we are living the efficiency era, right? So it is meant to be opaque to the end customer, and it is meant to be something that caters to making known and common processes much more fluid, easier, and faster, right? So there are a ton of applications, nothing out of a futuristic type movie, right? But things that are making a difference. And I think that's certainly step one. But then, as she also proposed, and I 100% agree, we then need to move the conversation as to how can we apply AI in order to be more proactive. Right. And I think in this industry, we are much more prone of being reactive. There's an issue. So how do we solve it? But how do we prevent that issue from ever happening? And AI would be a great tool for something like that.
So you kind of alluded to this, but I'm curious if you could dive a bit deeper into some of the more useful examples of how AI is currently being strategically applied in the industry, and maybe follow that up with some of the more exciting, innovating examples that you see happening right now.
Yeah, we see it being used again, you've got to think of from what lens. Is it from the operation internal to determine optimization, improvement of the content, the training materials, development of, anomaly detection to understand where there are issues when I'm looking at large data? Because that's what the machine learning is trying to do, is look at all of the data imports and try to understand if there are things that we're missing by looking at it in silos, right? So is it internal in optimization, or is it external in optimization for personalization, offers, pricing? We talk about revenue management and some of the dynamism that's coming into our sector, how that's starting to utilize this machine learning and predictive AI to start understanding dynamic pricing and how I can position in the marketplace. The chatbots we talked about. How am I using either generative within my service delivery and support, either in conversational to bring the funnel in so that I'm connecting people when I need to connect them to a human, or am I using the systems and the button number presses to help me move through, or is it conversational AI, where I'm using that generative AI piece that I train over time to answer these questions and help bring the customer into my operation, but at a better level, if you will, where I now can solve a problem faster and my talk time is reduced. So it's the optics. Am I outward facing? Am I inward facing? And how am I using the technologies in those constraints? And then ultimately, it's the change management organization that sits and has oversight across the umbrella or silos of the business to make sure that it's being deployed properly, that things that you need to connect are being connected, things that you shouldn't disconnect are not being disconnected, because there's still the business as usual that needs to run, that needs access to reports and similar. So it's fine tuning that and making sure you have that change management organization across it. So the expertise that we're trying to bring is that knowledge transfer so that you can go through these learnings and reduce the risk and time to execution. We rely on partners like Encora to have experience in this so that we can recommend pathways forward and understanding architecture and the impacts and similar. And that's where we see using the expertise in the market helps you reduce the scary factor and execute faster, right? That's really where we're trying to help.
And then test it and verify it.
And if you get it right, oh my God. And if you get it wrong, oh my God. But knowing and having the plans for that, that's what it's really about, right?
100% agree. And I think, David, you touch a really important point, right? The consultancy that needs to be part of this process, because as you just explained, it is a very involved process. You need to understand your business really well. You need to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve and even understand the types of clients that you have. That's why I always say this internally, AI is not a one size fits all. Right? We as builders, obviously, we can create just about everything. However, we need to first understand what it is that you're trying to have us create so we can be doing a beautiful job at that, right? I try to, usually put very simplistic terms and with the team. So the way that I see it is we can make a beautiful dress, a yellow dress. And somebody else says, you know what, I like this dress. And we just go and build the dress in yellow again. And maybe yellow is not that person's color. So there needs to be a conversation of what colors do you like? What type of event is this for? And this is how we need to take the conversations when we're trying to build real solutions, especially in the space like AI, where it almost feels like it's magical, right? You can shape it any way you like, but what is the perfect way for you? So the consultancy factor, I believe, is very important.
Thank you. And it kind of makes me think about also where we are, but where the future is headed. And this is a question that we plan on asking a lot of the guests that we have throughout this series. So I'm interested in your takes, and I'm going to secretly gauge your guesses and your theories against theirs. We'll see how you align. But how do you see AI shaping the future and travel of the hospitality industry? You know, one of the things we had mentioned earlier was data and how that shifted. I believe Martin Chevalier on his show mentioned what he thinks is going to be exciting is who owns the data, and that it's going to, I don't remember the exact term for it now, but that me, the guest, the user, owns my own data, and I lend it to you essentially temporarily during my stay, and then I take it back. There's a name for it. David, you probably know the name. Fabi, you do too. Fill in the blank for me. But I mean, these ideas of where we should be heading and how that aligns not only with the excitement of the tech, but the responsibility as well.
Agreed. And I think, you know, self-sovereign identity is a work group, I know, that is important. And the Decentralized Identity Forum. There are a number of companies trying to create not just the wallet, but your ability to actually control your information. And your information has value. Obviously, if I'm shopping for a yellow dress, I have difficulty coming up with that analogy, but
I have difficulty envisioning you in a yellow dress, David.
We're not going there. But the idea that you know my preferences of color, you know some of these things, how do I enable or provide the permission for any of these companies to have my preferences, right? And I think when I join a loyalty club or membership, or I'm part of an association or similar, or a sporting group, and I'm planning travel, you have more information about me, even with my address, my zip code, my phone number, what credit card I use. You could start to piece together this picture of me. You know, if I'm using a Platinum Amex versus a Discover card, that puts me potentially in a different pricing range, that now they're going to offer something differently. I may be the same person, just more frugal and thoughtful about a rebate in some versus, you know, the preeminent Centurion Lounge. But I think the opportunity of understanding the customer and being able to use this machine learning and intelligence to create a better experience, to credential and recognize and make a better offer, because I know it's your anniversary coming up and your wife does like the yellow dress, I'm going to recommend it for you, and it could be available for that lovely private dinner you're planning at the resort. Does that really work for someone, or is it crossing that creepy factor? A lot of this is possible now. It's how much do you want to engage and deploy? And a lot of the newer platforms that are cloud solutions that are focused on sharing and exchange of data in open marketplaces, and there are a number of them, that's enabling properties to take advantage. And as Fabi says, pick a size that's more bespoke to them, whether by budget or by feature function, or even by time, right? Those are the three controls that we as consultants and builders use. You know, how much does it cost, how much time, and what's the functionality? And we can mess with those to actually execute and deliver. That's the planning part that we need to be working on, of what do you want? What do you aspire to deliver to your customer? What is your customer asking for? Because they're getting access in the retail world to a lot more that's a lot faster with AI solutions, where I may place something on a table, it's priced and added to my folio right out of a small shop. That AI function is automating, and I don't need someone watching my little store. How is that affecting the service to me as a guest? I don't need someone providing a pint of ice cream to me at 11 o'clock at night. I don't want anyone to know, quite frankly. And I'm going to run back to my room, finish email, and eat my pint of ice cream. That might be a real good service for some of these properties. It's a Four Seasons? No, they're probably going to have someone deliver it to you in a silver bowl. But that's the kind of opportunity that we see coming, is your ability to choose. How do I want to engage the technologies? How do I want them to engage with my customer? And what does that look like, right? That's, I think, the future.
I think it was interesting that, sorry, Fabi, I'll let you jump in here in a second, but just how you mentioned the e-commerce side and the creepy factor a bit earlier, because it's interesting that now as people, we're more accustomed to that. And the travel and hospitality industry should, I guess, embrace or take advantage of the fact that guests are prone to be less and less creeped out, right? I mean, we have those conversations. How many times has it happened that you're in a store checking out, I don't know, this cool litter box at Costco, and then suddenly I'm on Facebook and there's this ad that pops up of like electronic litter boxes. And I'm kind of like, okay, weird, kind of creepy, but I'll roll with it because I'm interested in this robotic litter box. So is that also the future that you see happening, Fabi?
I do. I think it's jumping into the proactive stage, as I spoke earlier, right? I think the entire idea is that now having that data foundation and the right data, we can position a much better experience. So for example, I'm just kind of using some of the things that David talked about. We can move that into the booking pattern, right, of a booking engine, and how that can be a true experience-based booking engine, right? So when you think about AI and data combined, imagine, Kim, after you book that first trip, we now kind of sort of understand who Kim is, and we can spit out options that you're much more likely to buy, right? So I think when we talk to hotels, one of the main concerns is conversion. But if we're catering to some of Kim's preferences, we are more than likely be able to capture that conversion that they're looking for. So I think hyper personalization is definitely the topic, and it is the next gen or the future revolution, if you will, of traveling hospitality.
Agreed. I think, Kim, if I could, one step further could be voice and being able to actually talk to systems. And that's what I think we're all starting to look at. We do it with Alexa and with Siri and Cortana and others, right? Why can't we be doing that in our engagement with systems that are property related or guest engagement platforms, where I now can say I need my towels and do it at this time, or I want food and this is what I'm looking for. And that being recognizable and actionable. And I think even room controls, IoT and similar, there are a lot more interfaces and a lot more controls being put in place, not just through my phone and applications, but being able to start talking to devices. And I think when we talk future, that's something that we didn't mention, but I wanted to make sure I threw in. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, not at all. Interrupt all you like. And I think what you talk about is interesting. Martin laid this out too, this idea of that flagpole that you put 5-6 years down the road, but then you have to take those steps as you get there. So maybe we're not there yet in terms of getting to voice widespread just yet, but it leads me to just yesterday's conversation that we had on our Dojo Live show that was with Alejandro Gomez. He's VP of Revenue at Hollybob. They focus on experiences. And he brought up meeting guests where they're at and how a lot of that around the world and just happening in the United States, funnily enough, is utilizing things like WhatsApp and other channels. Is that also something that I thought, wow, he's onto something? Are you seeing that too? And is that maybe one of those incremental steps to get to voice?
I believe so. I think even in different markets, Alipay, WeChat, all of these different applications, they have the ability to start bringing the consumer into the e-commerce or hyper-commerce, as is being discussed, and make it relevant and contextual so that I'm able to execute at my location or on my way. Uber's doing it right now and is really stealing the traveler because they know when they're being dropped off and can offer them Uber Eats now so they can get the food or the drink that they want. And they know the timing. So they're able to really do that in real-time commerce. Why aren't they going to get into travel? I think the same thing can be said here. Why aren't I embedding the drive, the limo, the pickup, the everything else into my hotel apps? And I think that's the loyalty piece that we need to start looking at and playing on so that I can engage either in the groups and meeting space where I'm going, which is one part of the hotel, and the FIT traveler in another part. They're still part of one commerce environment, but they're different organizations within the business. How do we fix that? And that's where I think thinking through the customer journey and empathizing around that, how do you support and engage? Those are the critical thinking parts that we need to make sure that we're making everyone aware of. Maybe we should do a show about it.
Huh. Maybe we should, because I was just going to ask you how companies could prepare to capitalize on such trends, but now my question is kind of moot because you already answered it. I absolutely love it.
It's an important topic as well. We could talk for days on that.
Absolutely. You know, and we are going to be talking for days on this because I cannot believe this half hour has passed already. We've sort of come to the end of our kickoff, but don't worry, folks, because we've got several more sessions for you coming up. This series is going to again happen every other Thursday at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific on Here with Dojo Live and Provision Partners. We will be, however, we're going to be skipping June 27th because we're going to be where?
High Tech.
At High Tech, right? Exactly. But we will wrap up this series on July 11th because you got to throw in 4th of July in there too, as a series wrap up, a High Tech wrap up. So be sure to catch us every other Thursday between now and then. Fabi, David, it's been my pleasure to learn from you. I'm so excited to also learn from other companies who have embraced such technology, such ideas. And I think, David, you had this really fun analogy, right? What are we saying about embrace?
Embrace?
Yeah. We're not doing what kind of hugs here now?
It's a bro hug. It's a bro hug. Right?
No bro hugs. We're talking about the full-on embrace.
That's it. Thank you.
Perfect. So we'll see you next on May 2nd. And then please do join us here on Dojo Live next week. We have, no, wait, I'm ahead of myself. This is not next week. Next week, we do not have any shows scheduled, but we will have one on the 30th with David Malili of Logic. So go ahead and check that out as well. Actually, David, I think you're familiar with David.
I am. He's an awesome guy and a great company. So I look forward to watching.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, and see you soon. Stay safe.